Hello everyone, this is Anne from Odulcina Scrap. I am back with the tutorial on how to age or make faux vintage documents. Well, I say vintage, but they're mostly antique documents because they're 100 years old and more. So those 3 pages that I'm going to use tonight, this letter and a letter of recommendation and this piano rental is part of my vintage elements kit on Etsy with other vintage or antique elements too, like postcards and envelopes and graphics. I'll put the link below in the description. So what I want to show you first is I've printed my digitals on that kind of paper. If you're old enough, you'll recognize that. This is for the old printers. And what I like about this paper is that it is thinner than a photocopy paper that we use in these days. So if you can grab some, they print well, but the paper is thin and it makes a good noise. I have both. This is, I'll show you the same picture, the same digital. So I have both. Look at that. So really that one makes a crispy noise compared to the photocopy paper that is less crispy. The other difference is that because it's a thinner paper, if you don't have to print the back, you see it's so thin that you see the print on the other side, like if it's a real one. Now, if you use a photocopy paper, you won't see the back, but in my kit, you have the back, so you can print the back. But this is a printing compared to this one is the real thing. Like I just printed on that side and you see the back. Even better than the copy, because this one, it's the digital printed there. So I'll show you the 2 others. You have the 2 sides available in the digital kit. Those papers are printed both sides. And now if you look at the ones printed on that old printer paper, you have the front, and I didn't print the back. You have the front, and I didn't print the back. And this letter, you have the front, and I didn't print the back. They look awesome. So really, if you want to reproduce old vintage antique documents, I suggest you grab some of those papers. They are still available on Amazon, Staples. You just need to buy like 1,000 pages, but I think it's kind of $30 Canadian, so it's less than $30 for US. I'm not sure about Europe or Australia, but I guess they're still available there too. All right, so just printed, they already look aged. Really, like we can see the folds. They really look great. I'm really happy with how it came out. This, you have a difference in the color because the original has a difference in the color. So it's made to be like that. So first thing we do is we want to follow the fold. So let me start with this one. I'll do the 3, but I'll do the first with talking to you while I do the process, And the two others, I just won't talk. I'll repeat the same things that you're gonna see me doing for this one, and I'll just put music and in a higher speed so you don't watch me during the process 3 times, which would make the video too long. So listen to the instructions to this with this one, but you'll see me doing the two others in a speedy mode. All right, so first thing we need to do is to fold where we see the lines. So I see here a fold, I see a fold here, and then, because those papers were not folded like perfectly, so we need to follow whatever they were. Otherwise, the lines printed won't match and it would look awful. All right, so I did the first fold, and if I open, it looks great. At the back, we don't see folds. It's not obvious like that. Now, to do the other folds, you need to fold it into 2 and then follow this fold line. And the other one, same thing. We barely see, maybe at the camera it's not obvious, but there is a line here. Okay, so I'm gonna follow that. If you don't really see the line in real, that means you don't need to follow it that much because you don't really care. But if you see the line, you need to follow the line for the fold. So I have my paper folded. Now I'm gonna ink them. My favorite is the antique linen, especially when it is really a light yellowish, really light color. You can use the vintage photo too. But really my favorite is the antique linen. So I'll use the antique linen. You can use a dabber like that too. But my favorite is those kind of brushes, because you're gonna see what I'm doing. I'm gonna take one of those papers so you can see well and I don't stain my mat. But what I do is I put ink and I just give it an ankle and I just go like that. And you can see right away that it inked. Like, can you see? Like, it's really light and it's just perfect. Let me do this one on both sides. So I always do both sides. And if you're running out of ink, like with that color, you cannot really mess up if you put too much ink. Compared to the vintage photo, if you put too much ink or you press too hard, it can become really, really dark. Because look at this. It's really aged. I was pressing hard. Well, not that hard, but I give it a good inking. And you cannot go wrong with the antique linen because it cannot go that dark. So I ink both sides. I'll do that for every fold. I put ink and I give it an ankle, and then I twist the other side and I give it to the other side, both sides. So I'll just do that on both sides. Now if you want the other one, I'll do it with vintage photo. So maybe I'll stop the video and I'll talk to you a little bit to show you the result, not in a high speed, in a speedy mode. Okay. Now all of my folds are done on that side. I need to do the edges, so same way. I just find that sometimes with that brush, I can go a little bit in and it doesn't do like a mark. Let me compare to, this is the vintage photo. If I do that, sometimes we see rounds, you know, like this. We don't want that. So when you use that kind of brush, well, you can see here it came a little bit inside and you don't see lines or rounds or anything. So that's why I like those brush. They are not cheap, but they totally are worth it. Actually, I would say I use both depending on the effect I want on my paper or cards. So if you never buy those, go on Amazon. It's a good investment, I find, personally. So I'm doing the side, 3 sides. Now the top is all done. I'm gonna revert and I'm gonna do the edges on the sides as well. I go a little bit faster because I don't go as dark. So at the back, but the edges are clearly dark still. Now for the folds, the inside folds, I just pass like that quickly, just like that this time because it's the back. And you can see it's really light, but you have some color. So now that it's all inked, we need to damage the paper. So we're gonna put it back in place. Well, actually, I'm gonna go do all the sides. What I like to do is just create some folds, you know. I don't have a technique more. I don't know how to explain it, but I just grab my nail with my nails and my fingers and the paper. I just squish it, and put it back to place. Look at that. It already looks good. So really, I take my nails and I just pinch it. Pinch, squeeze, pull, fold, and then I place it back straight, which never comes back as perfectly, but it leaves the folds. So, and you can do bigger one and then you put them back. So good. You can roll, you can, you know, damage it. You want to damage it. And even if you tear it a little bit, it's okay. So don't waste too much time on that. You can go quickly. You can't go wrong unless you scratch the whole paper. Look at that. Looks good already, eh? Let me zoom a little bit. No, you won't see the page. Okay, so now that my edge is done, I'm gonna fold it back to how it should be folded. I'm not sure how this was folded initially. I think it was like that, but because this one is light and those two were darker, maybe it was like that. Really hard to say, but whatever. You can fold it the way you prefer, really. So let's do it this way. I think it looks better this way. So now I imagine that we can put a paper clip here. Let's say that I would use a paper clip here. It's a bit big, or a smaller one. Okay, we would have some marks here. So I'm going to create some marks. In order to create marks, I love to use like a safety pin because it's a needle. It's like, it's pointy like a needle. And I'm going to create some holes. So create some holes, like if it's been damaged, you know, some are. And then I'm going to take one and maybe tear it a little bit. And just to damage it, like it's not too round. Like I'm gonna do things like that. Scratching. Yeah. And then maybe refolding, pressing down, squeeze it. We want to damage it without totally breaking it. But we want the paper to become really like damaged. Look at that. Okay, so now, like if I show you, now if we open the paper, it looks like that. And it looks like that at the bottom. We are missing some ink. They are too perfect. So I'm gonna fold that back. And now I'm gonna take my pen and I'm gonna use the ink. I'm gonna ink my pen like that. And now I'm gonna go back into my holes, and so I put a bit of ink and I go into the hole and I press a little bit, and you can see it creates some ink depending on my ankle. At least it's inking the hole, and I can, if I give it an ankle, it can stain a little bit the paper around or create the line, like if it would do with a rusted pen or paper clip. So I'll do the same on the other side, because obviously my ink didn't go through totally. So that's my way to ink my fake vintage holes. Look at that. So now if we look, let me close that to make sure we don't stain whatever. Look at that. It looks way better now. Maybe I'm missing a bit here, so I can just do some here. A little bit more. You want to go put a little bit of ink in all those holes. All right, this will look way better. So this is for creating holes, like if there was a paper clip or a pen that damaged the paper. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I can decide somewhere I'd like to tear the paper, like if it's been damaged. So maybe here it looks like it's been really old, so I can just tear it a little bit. And then if you tear it, you want to add a little bit of ink. And this is where I prefer the dabber. So I would just re-ink a little bit the sides, because if you just tear them, they're obviously white. A little bit of ink. And you want to damage them a little bit with your nails and your finger. So create some folds again, like treat it like you did for the edges of the paper. You see? So now if I fold my paper, it starts to look great. Now the corners, I don't really tear them, but they need some damage here. So I can maybe dab on my table like that, or just do it with my fingers. I just put some pressure and I pinch, and I'll do the other like that. I just put some pressure as much as I can to kind of pinching it. Ah, they look better now. So if we open that, it now looks like there's holes there. There's holes there. There's the tearing here. And at the bottom too, right? The edges are damaged. The corners, which is the middle, are damaged. And if you look at the other side too. Now, if you want, you can add a little bit of inking. Just you slightly pass and the ink will just go like on whatever is higher than the average of the paper. But I tend not to do that. Maybe this here, it's too perfect. If it looks too perfect, you add some ink. But this is what it can look like. So really, when I'm aging papers, I'm playing with creating folds, like pinching, and with my nails, just creating folds. I create holes, but I add some ink with a pen, and I tear a little bit, re-ink. And that's pretty much it. So now I'm gonna go grab a paper clip and put a rusty paper clip there so you can see the end results. Okay, so I have a paper clip here that is rusty. And now look at that. It looks like if it's an old one. And when you open it, you have that crispy noise, like an old document. I am in love with those. Because really, finding those antique documents, they're not cheap. And if you like, and if you love to create some and give some journals or sell some journals, at some point, do you really want to spend that much of money on real ones, or you want to recreate all fake ones? So it's really up to you. But I like the idea of creating fake ones and not spending too much money on real ones. I own the originals on those, but yeah, they were not cheap. So let me put my video in a speedy mode, and you're gonna see me doing those two, and at the end I'm gonna come back showing you showing the details on how they look like at the end. I am back with the 3 documents completed. So here you go. I'm gonna show you what they look like. The other one. and the piano one. So these are my 3 documents for now. I have more that I'm gonna digitalize eventually, but in that kit, these are the ones that I offer. The kit is Vintage Elements. The link is below. Now, this idea came from, you know, that mysterious Angie, that she creates a lot of faux documents, and she has a lot of real ones as well. But I also saw a tutorial on how to age the documents and make them faux documents through Ruby&PearlXO channel on YouTube. So I'll put the link below for Heather's channel, Ruby&PearlXO. I'll put a link of her tutorial. So watching mine and hers should give you enough of tips to do your own. So enjoy the process, have fun with that, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.